Welcome to Toastmaster Time, the show that's got everybody talking. My name is James Jeffley, and I will be your host for this edition of Toastmaster Time. Just like in a regular Toastmasters meeting, tonight we will have prepared speeches. We'll have an evaluator which will give feedback to our speakers to help them improve. For that, we have our very own evaluator, Trich Gray. Trish, welcome. Can you give us a preview of what we're in store for tonight?
Yes, James. I think our audience is going to be just so interested in this show. We have two experienced speakers. I've heard them both. I've been impressed with both of them. One is going to persuade us to her point of view. The other one's going to give us an inspiring story from his life. At the end of this show, I think we're going to have some points to ponder.
Well, it sounds like we have quite a special show. Thanks, Trish, and I look forward to hearing your feedback a little later on. For now, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker to the show. Please welcome Kiran Patel. Kiran, nice to meet you.
Hi, James.
Actually, we've met before.
Yes, we have.
What club are you a member of?
East Bay Toastmasters Club.
Our club?
Yes, it is.
How long have you been a Toastmaster?
Just about a year.
About a year. And you're working on project number 9?
Correct.
So you're one speech away from your competent communicator achievement.
That's right.
That's quite a milestone. How do you feel about that?
It'll be good to get those letters, I guess, but it's more about the experience.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Are you ready to give your speech?
Yes.
Well, we're looking forward to it. I'll give you a moment to prepare. While you're doing that, I'll talk with our audience about our program. Kiran will be doing a manual speech. It's a speech that's crafted to meet a specific set of objectives from one of the 17 manuals provided by Toastmasters, which cover all manner of speaking assignments one might encounter. Your speech could be tailored to include props, gestures, vocal variety for emphasis, etc. At our weekly club meetings, we also encourage members to act as evaluators for each other to provide feedback on how well each speaker achieved their goals. Here at Toastmaster Time, we're no different. We have our very own evaluator, and to review the objectives for Kiran's speech, I'd like to welcome back Trich Gray. Trish, what will you be looking for in Kiran's speech?
Well, Kiran, as you said, is working from the Competent Communicator Manual, project number 9, Persuade with Power. Her objectives are to persuade her audience to adopt her point of view, and then to take some action at the end of her speech. She wants to appeal to her audience's interest, use logic and emotion to support her position.
It sounds like we're in for a great speech. We look forward to your comments later on. Right now, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Kiran Patel. Victim? Victim? Kiran Patel.
I'm a victim. I'm not a victim. I'm a victim. I am not a victim. Now, what if it were that simple? What if you just choose not to be a victim? There's this mindset pervasive in our society. It's almost invisible, and it wreaks havoc in our lives. It's called victim consciousness. It's where you feel like you've been wronged. You have no power, you have no choice. And because of this, you suffer. Your emotions control your life. And there are important parts of your life that are just on hold. The reason I know this, I've suffered from victim consciousness. But there's another characteristic that's really important to know about this. Victim consciousness is a choice. For me, I've chosen no. And my hope is that after I've shared with you, you also will say no. My turning point happened during a phone conversation with my dad, where I was trying to get him to understand why I was so mad at him and my mom. No, Dad, it has nothing to do with the sexual assault. I'm not having flashbacks. That was so long ago. I'm so done with that. In fact, I'm proud of how I handled this assault. I showed up in my power and I chose not to be a victim. I looked for options, I took them, and you know what happened? My assailant backed off and I walked away. The problem was that after those 3 traumas, you guys weren't there for me. I had to go through my own healing. And because of that, all the relationships since that point on were adversely affected. That is why I'm going through what I'm going through, and that is why I'm bitter. I get off the phone and I can't help but notice the incongruity. There I was bragging about how masterfully I was navigating a sexual assault and a death threat, accessing my power. And in the same breath, I'm showing up as a victim with my own family. So I wondered if I could choose not to act like a victim in the assault where I'm actually being victimized in that situation. Could I choose that now? And I realized I could. For that matter, I could choose it all the time. And I also realized that when I choose that, I don't suffer as much. My life's not on hold, I'm free. At that point, it was a no-brainer for me. I drew a line in the sand. Victim consciousness, you are not welcome anymore. Now, how about you? Is there a place in your life where you are acting like a victim? You feel like you have no power, or maybe your well-being is in someone else's hands. What if you could choose otherwise? Let me tell you how. First, recognize when you're in victim consciousness. Just notice, when are you feeling that someone else has wronged you or that your well-being is outside of you? Second, know that the reason we go to victim consciousness is because we feel hurt. And what we really want is for our pain to be held and healed. So find ways to hold and heal your pain. If the tears want to flow, let them flow. If you want to howl, howl. And just be present with your awareness. Notice how you're feeling emotionally. Experience the physiological expression of those emotions. And it's that presence that is holding that pain and healing it. And third, don't act like a victim. Now, you may feel like a victim, but you still don't have to act like one. For example, during my assault, I wanted to have my knees buckle and just melt into a puddle on the floor. But I chose to be calm and collected. And because of that, I was able to navigate more effectively. And fourth, find options. They may be minuscule, but know that you always have choice. And if it's hard to find options, here's a technique. Take the thing that you think you have to do off the table. What would you do? So there you go. Here is how you can say no to victim consciousness. So now I ask you, are you ready to say no to victim consciousness? When you say no to victim consciousness, it's like lifting a veil and you reclaim your essence, which is power, joy, and freedom. I'm not a victim. I am not a victim.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did you think of Kiran's speech?
Well, I think, first of all, it takes a lot of courage to get up in front of any audience and talk about something so personal, obviously so life-changing, that you know, I'm sure a number of people need to hear a speech like that to give them the courage to say, you know, when I don't talk about it, or when I internalize all the feelings of anger and hurt and whatever, I'm just hurting myself. You know, it's not affecting the people who did this to me. It's you know, I'm still letting it have control over my life.
Right.
And so I liked that she did it as a persuasive speech to persuade us to, you know, I liked one of the things she said was, you know, if you want to howl, howl. And she gave us some pretty concrete steps that we can take to stop being a victim, such as, you know, recognize when you feel like a victim, know when you go there, you know, because we hurt, and then don't act like a victim. You can choose not to act like a victim and then find your options. Just as a thought also, I liked her opening with the flower, because that's a game that so many of us have played when we were kids. So we could recognize, we kind of be drawn into, you know, pulling the flowers off of the daisy. I'm a victim. I'm not a victim. So I thought that was very good, and I also liked how she brought it back at the end. You know, open with the flower, end with the flower. And if I were to give her perhaps a suggestion of maybe something to think to do differently, my only suggestion might be, and I understand daisies are pretty small, so it was a pretty small flower, and hopefully it'll come across pretty well on when you review her speech. From a larger audience, it's kind of a small flower.
Yeah, yeah. I really appreciated the speech within the speech, where she was also modeling the inspiration by talking about her past. For right now, we need to take a short break. You're watching Toastmaster Time. We'll be right back.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
Welcome back to Toastmaster Time, the show that has everybody talking. Right now, I'd like to introduce our second speaker on our program, Angelo Macaraeg. Angelo, welcome to Toastmaster Time.
Thanks for having me.
Now, this is not your first time here, is it?
No, it's not.
What was your first experience here?
I was actually an evaluator, so I was doing what Trich is doing.
Oh, great. And how was that for you?
It was interesting. It was my first time being in a TV studio and on a program like this that was televised. It's very different from an actual meeting, because you're speaking to cameras, not a live audience, but it's still very worthwhile.
How long have you been a Toastmaster?
2 years.
And how has Toastmasters helped you out in the real world?
It's helped me deal with pressure and speaking under pressure and being nervous. I'm someone who gets nervous very easily, and it takes a lot of practice. You know, you just have to throw yourself out there, and that's the only way you're going to learn.
Very good. Well, are you ready to give your speech?
Yes, I am.
Right now, while he's getting ready, I want to talk a little bit about Toastmasters. It's an international organization that's dedicated to helping people overcome their fear of public speaking. And there's a Toastmasters club somewhere in your neighborhood. We have approximately 350,000 members in over 15,000 clubs in about 136 countries worldwide. And people meet generally every week, and they learn how to get over their fear of public speaking. They also develop important communication and leadership skills. And right now, I'd like to welcome back Trich. Trich Gray, tell us a little bit about Angelo's objectives.
Angelo is also working from the Competent Communicator Manual. This is project number 10, Inspire Your Audience. And with this one, he's going to inspire us to some perhaps greater noble motive, and he's going to challenge our beliefs, our way of thinking, and he's going to appeal to our audience's needs, emotions, using stories, add some drama, just to help encourage us to his point of view.
Well, it sounds like another outstanding speech. Right now, I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Angelo Macaraeg, like Mike. Like Mike, Angelo Macaraeg.
Have you ever wanted to be cool? Well, you're in for a treat because I'm going to reveal the secret to being cool. But before I get there, let me first tell you how not to be cool. The person you are watching right now was the complete opposite of cool growing up. I grew up in a very big family, and being the youngest cousin allowed me to be picked on by my older cousins, particularly one cousin, my oldest cousin, Mike. Mike was the epitome of cool. He was tall, he was handsome, he played all kinds of sports, he wore cool shoes, and all my older cousins looked up to him. But me, on the other hand, I was short. I didn't know the difference between basketball and football, and my shoes were from Payless because my mom was cheap. Growing up, I had really wanted to be like Mike, and I followed him and my older cousins everywhere. But because I was the follower, I was the annoying little cousin, the little brat, they shunned me like every Disney Channel geek. I remember one time I was at a family party, and I arrived and I saw Mike and my older cousins playing video games. I really, really wanted to play. And so I went up to them, and they laughed at me instead. Why? Because I had two bunny-looking teeth, with one going this way and one going that way. And I said to them, "Hey, why are you guys laughing at me?" And Mike said to me, "Oh, we're not laughing at you." "You are laughing at me. It's clear that you're laughing at me. Why can't I play with you guys?" I said, "We're not laughing at you." I said to myself, fine, if I can't fit in with my looks, then I have to think of another way to fit in. Well, I know Mike and my older cousins play basketball. I was in elementary school. I played basketball during recess and lunch. I could learn and get really good, and then they would have to accept me. And so I joined an after-school program. I practiced with my friends, and I made sure that that next family party, I was going to show up, and they were going to choose me on their team and be the best player. So I did show up in the next family party in my basketball shoes, my basketball shorts, my basketball shirt. And Mike was one of the captains along with my other cousin. And one by one, they start picking people to be on their team. And I was so excited, I couldn't wait for them to pick me. Well, it turns out they didn't pick me at all. I was the only one who wasn't picked. And I immediately started crying. And I yelled at Mike. I said, "Hey, why didn't you pick me? I'm good." And he looked at me and said, "You're not good. If we choose you, we're going to lose. No one wants you on their team." And so that day, I watched Mike and my older cousins play from the sidelines. In fact, my entire childhood life felt like I was always watching from the sidelines. I was that guy who wasn't cool enough, who wasn't recognized, and didn't have what it took to fit in. I grew up with an inferiority complex because of that. I felt like I always had something to prove, and I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was angry. But there was one day at my uncle's house when I was sitting down at his old upright piano. You see, I am one of the only musicians out of all my cousins, and I knew I was good at music, but I hated practicing. For some reason, Michael decides to sit next to me, and at the end of my ballad, he looked at me, and he smiled, and he said, I wish I could play like you. For someone who has ridiculed you your entire life, when that person tells you that they wish they could do something that you can, it means the whole world. You see, that moment changed my life. Not only am I a musician now and embraced my talent of music, but I learned a great lesson. It's not about the things that I didn't have that didn't make me cool. It was actually the things that I did have. My talents, my experiences, my gifts from the universe. Those things made me cool. But unfortunately, in my 8th grade year, Michael passed away in a car accident. And I remember being at the funeral and being the only person in that room who wasn't crying. And it wasn't until I grew older that I realized why I didn't cry. I didn't cry because I knew in my heart that Michael had taught me one of the greatest lessons about being cool and one of the greatest lessons in life, which is to love yourself. You see, being cool is not about trying to be like someone else. Being cool is right here. Love yourself. And I promise you, you will be the coolest person that you know.
Wow, another outstanding speech.
It is. And
What did you think of Angelo's speech?
you know, I've heard that several times and it still gives me chills because, first of all, it's hard to imagine Angelo being so uncool, being short and the bunny teeth and whatever. But I liked how he started his speech, which is the secret to being cool. You're like, oh, okay, what's the secret? I want to be cool. But then he said, well, I'm going to start by telling you how not to be cool. He described himself. And he used stories, so that was the drama there about his story and not being picked for the basketball team and watching from the sidelines and made him angry. And, but then he goes into another story, which is being at his uncle's house and playing the piano. So it's like, oh, okay, now it's getting interesting. You know, things are looking up. So we kind of got that emotion. We're going, oh, here's something good. So we're now on the upswing a little bit. And I just love how he ended that, you know, he didn't cry at Mike's funeral because he realized what Mike had taught him. You know, what Mike had taught him was inside. Cool is inside. Love yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, no one else is going to love you.
What an inspiring message about learning to love yourself and to overcome you know, some of the trials of being a kid and being teased or picked on. We've heard two outstanding speeches tonight, and thank you very much, Trish, for sharing your feedback. For right now, we've got to take another break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Toastmaster Time.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
And welcome back to Toastmaster Time, the show that has everyone talking. You know, Trish, one of the things that really impressed me about both speakers is how they had an emotional arc to their speech. There were low points, there were high points. Can you speak a little bit about how important it is to build that kind of arc into especially a speech like Persuasion or Inspiration?
You know, that reminds me of, I heard a speaker once, and it was actually a very at the end of it, I thought, wow, what a trauma. It's about a brother being very ill and in danger of dying. And I thought, at the end of the speech, it was like, oh my God, she just didn't show much emotion. I would have just been, you know, and I find, for me, that was the lack, because I should have felt is, you know, kind of sinking into the depths of despair. She's going, oh, you know, more upset, more upset. And then the resolution, when it turns out he was going to be okay, it's almost like this relief. And I think that's what we want with the tension. So it's like you're building tension and building tension and building tension. And I thought Kiran did wonderful with the dialogue with her dad, and showing how angry, you know, you weren't there for me, and you just get drawn into like, oh, you poor thing, and oh, you know, why didn't they support you? And then, you know, you can come into the resolution, and it's like, oh, you know. And I think it's the same way with good writers. That's why certain authors are more popular, because they build this drama and tension and emotion and then release it.
Exactly. And if you can craft that into your speech, you take the audience on somewhat of a roller coaster ride, if you will. There are up moments, there are down moments, and it provides an additional type of variety in a speech beyond just vocal variety or maybe variety with gestures. Trish, it's been a pleasure having you as an evaluator again. Thank you for being on the show. Well, that's our show. Thank you very much for joining us once again on Toastmaster Time. We tape our show here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and if you'd like more information about our show, please visit our website at toastmastertime.com. We're sponsored by Toastmasters District 57. To learn more about them, join them on the web at d57tm.org. And if you'd like more information about Toastmasters, or you'd like to find a club in your area, visit us on the web at toastmasters.org. We appreciate all of the wonderful staff and volunteers here at the Media Center in Palo Alto, where we tape our show. Thanks again to our guest speakers, Kiran Patel and Angelo Macaraeg, and to our evaluator, Trich Gray. From all of us here at Toastmaster Time, I'm James Jeffley. We invite you to join Toastmasters and keep talking.